So, to get into some more nonsense, the rebellion was led by a girl who, to explain it properly, I have to go back to the prologue of the story, which is way back in the day, during the Crusades, there was apparently something called the, Children's Crusade, where the improperly titled Holy Roman Empire sent a bunch of children to go to Jerusalem and fight, but instead betrayed them and sold them to Africa as, children slaves. And granted, I'm pretty sure at the time Africa was not well colonized enough to really need, child slaves from Europe. I'm pretty sure that if they were, actually developed enough to need that, they could just take natives, because that's pretty much what they were doing anyway, and I don't even think they were doing that yet, since that was... So, yeah, ignoring, that little bit of continuity, it's the leader, the children leader of that crusade was betrayed by the Pope, so he made the decision to become a fallen angel, travel forward in time, go to this academy, become a girl, except he's a hermaphrodite now, and lead this revolution. So, yeah, that makes no sense. This is still within the first one, by the way. In the first one, there's also this woman character, who she's never properly introduced. You have no idea who the fuck she is, why she's there, but she keeps on being in it. It's also established that she has a husband in this. So that becomes relevant later, I guess. So, after causing the, revolt at the school, the girls go through a time portal, conveniently located in the school, and go back to feudal Japan to confront Shiro Amakusa. And just the fact that Shiro Amakusa is in this automatically makes it bad. And the fact that I can make the definitive statement that everything with Shiro Amakusa in it is terrible really is annoying, because he should not be in this many bad things. I mean, granted, he's completely irrelevant, but, fuck Japanese Jesus. Fuck Japanese Jesus. So, he basically says that he brought them back in time in order to have him fight for him so that he can conquer Japan. Now, if you notice that this has absolutely nothing to do with the plot up to that point, you would be correct. It makes absolutely no sense that he would just suddenly be like that. And, of course, they're like, no, we're not going to fight for you. And he's like, well, then I guess I have to kill you. And then the first one stops. That is the first one. I've just described the entirety of the first OVA, and nothing about it made sense. The entire thing is miserable. The characters, they're all bland, but they're all just, suffering really horribly. It's, all the characters are just horribly cruel to each other. One character commits suicide. They're driven to suicide, and it's just it's miserable to watch, and it's painful, and it's just such a terrible experience to sit through that. And then the second one, oh god, the second one. Nothing about the second one makes sense. So, because of the revolution, because of the revolt at the school, the guy in charge of it gets demoted and has to, fly as a kamikaze. But, on his way off onto a mission, his, plane has a problem and it crashes into the ocean. So apparently, in that first timeline, which granted stops happening because the girls go back in time directly after the revolt, thus changing history, and so everything after that technically shouldn't have happened at any point. But because apparently it did, that woman from the first one, who, you have no idea who the fuck she is, was apparently in love with the guy who was in charge of the school. But, granted, she was married to someone else and is married in the new timeline, but apparently that was her lover in some timeline that never happened inside the anime. So, because he died, she's pissed off. So, in, a third timeline, where he never dies and, never existed, she's pissed off that he died in a different timeline because he was a jackass in a way that is in some way eventually related to the event. So, because of this, she decides to go back in time, which turns her into a hermaphrodite, and make sure that the Children's Crusade actually happens. Now, just to reiterate, because that statement makes no sense, the Children's Crusades were the event, because that happened, it started the event of the revolt at the school. So, by making sure that that happens, that they get betrayed, you're ensuring that the event that you're trying to prevent happens, which just makes no sense. So, yeah, so there's timeline A where the revolt happens. Then there's timeline B where all the relevant events happen off screen, where the girls go back in time, conquer feudal Japan, despite the fact that there's like 20 of them that are barely efficient with arms, and they don't have any guns either. They did not bring guns with them. So they go back in time, conquer feudal Japan, and then go back further in time, conquer Christianity, since I can't really say the Holy Roman Empire. That's what they call it, but of course, that's not how that worked. So they conquer Christianity, and that causes the world to be unified, and everyone's happy, except for this one woman who is in timeline B or whatever, where that happens. So she creates timeline C, where she goes back to make sure that the Children's Crusade happens, and yeah, so that makes no sense. And then it just kind of goes from there, and nothing about it makes sense. The Pope, like, eats her out when she's a dude with kids. And it's just stupid. It's just the most confusing, most convoluted, nonsensical piece of crap ever made. It has so many plot points, so many things about it that just, none of them work. Every aspect, it's just so confusing and weird. And furthermore, like, one of the big problems is that, I mean, it seems like it would be a minor issue, but it really does, like, drive me crazy of that the character, like, Hans was the leader of the Children's Crusade, and at the same time, I think it's like Aiko, his like, future self, they have the same voice. They didn't bother, like, changing it at all. Like, it's played by the same, like, voice actress in both periods, but she doesn't bother doing a different voice for the male counterpart, so it just sounds weird. And then, like, the Children's Crusade, like, on their way to, like, I think they're going to Marseille so they can, like, ship off to Jerusalem. On the way there, they get their ass kicked by bandits, which kind of should be an indicator that you're not an effective fighting force. Like, 8 bandits kicked your ass. What the fuck are you going to do against battle-hardened, like, Arab soldiers? So, like, yeah. This anime is horrible. Everything about it makes no sense. It's just miserable to watch. Like, tone is just, it's human suffering for no reason, and the just stupidest, most confusing, nonsensical plot that I have ever seen. There was not a moment where I was not pissed off by them just doing something that made no sense. Everything about this is horrible. Oddly enough, I do kind of suggest watching it, like watching To the Sisters, just to see how little sense it makes. If you want to see how poorly constructed a story can be, this is it. This is the thing to watch, because they somehow manage to just make the worst thing ever. It's almost impressive, if we're not so terrible. So yeah, this is the worst thing I've ever seen, and I've seen some pretty bad stuff.